Hi everybody, I trust everyone's been keeping well, and yeah guys, thank you so much for your love and support, um, and just the different messages I've been receiving from the previous video. I didn't actually realize how much some people actually needed this, and yeah, all the glory to God. It's nothing, it's not about me. Yes, I have a story to tell, I'm telling my experience, but I still say, glory be to God. This is about His greatness. This is about His glory. This is about His power. This is about His dominion. And let it continue to be so. And just to continue on that notion, um, I did see a few things where people are kind of questioning why I'm sharing this part of my life. As I had said in the beginning, I don't even know what I'm doing here on TikTok. I don't even know why God called me to do this. I'm just being obedient. Anginayo impendulo. There's no fame in this. There's nothing to gain from my side. It's not content. I've never been a content girly. So I'm purely here because God said to me, you need to speak up about your deliverance, hence the deliverance. And this is what I'm doing right now according to God's will. So guys, we left it off whereby I became basing up in the room with my friends, and now we sort of enter a space where the spirit is fully taking dominion and authority over my life. So from now, the spirit just started to work. It started to claim me. I allowed it to as well, permitted it to fully have its place over me. It started removing me from certain people. I started isolating a lot. I couldn't have friends in my room anymore. It was that sort of ordeal. And the river trip started increasing from 1 to 3 times a week. And as I had said to everyone, that I was originally self-initiating. So every time I'd see the water or I'd see ocean, I knew that I had to go to the ocean, or to do something on ngingena zibeni. And that's another thing. I started entering like rivers, throwing coins into rivers. Then I'd feel better, or I'd connect better to Ilozi, and so forth. So this was sort of becoming a lifestyle. I'd go to the ocean, go to the river, and if I'm at school, I'd go find the nearest river to the university. And what's always sort of like life supply. And it's the craziest part because every time I didn't go to the river, I just feel off. I wouldn't feel like myself. So it was kind of like I got my source of happiness, joy, and spirit was revived, ironically, when I went to the river. So guys, I my river trip here. And this is what the Makosi part was about. But what I want to touch on is the specific covenant I had with the marine kingdom now. So as I had said, originally, those are water spirits. And today I understand them to be marine spirits. And even the way I consulted my clients when I was full force operating as on my course and consulting clients, I would take a bottle of water, the same thing as actually the traditional healer, ironically, and I'd ask people to bring a bottle of water and I'd consult with the bottle of water. So it did use a lot of water, and I found that with me, most things, I'd use like e-wash, or when I wanted to cleanse myself or cleanse my energy or remove like bad aura around me, because imiti no moti never worked on me. So there's an ordeal in the whole African spirituality losi thing. Some people, especially those who come from water, they can't use umut or imiti because they are from water. So those two things are like fire and oil. They don't go together. So I was always leaning onto water. Whatever I did, it was water. but then I'm realizing later that it was a covenant with the water thing that I had. So I'm going to touch on a few concerning things that started to happen the more I went to rivers, the more I visited different rivers. And I entered majority of all the rivers in back home and also around me at school, where I was the area. I was entering a lot of rivers there. So I'd go inside the rivers, I'd go underneath the waterfall, and I don't even know how I got through that, but glory to God, hey. But I realize now, every time I came back from the river, I'd have strange dreams. So originally it was just like, okay, you'd see mermaids and you'd see like, okay, just water entities, and you'd see white people, or I'd dream of Indian people, mainly like strange, just Indian people. I'm not saying, yeah, just Indian people or white people. And then it moved to something a little bit more concerning, and I'm going to touch onto this. I started to dream of specific entities. I once saw a reptilian in my dream, and it came to speak to me. A reptilian is basically half, a half crocodile, a half a half lizard, and half man. They'd come speak to me into my dreams, and they'd call my name, and they'd ask me to enter water. Then I used to Google what that meant or ask around. And I asked also the traditional healer what it meant that I dreamed a half person. And they told me, hey, again, you know, they always were so excited. So he was like, hey, I am back at this journey, your journey is on fleek. Then he's like, hi, when I'm you like levels, also pupa indlondlo. Like pupa indlondlo. That's like hierarchy. Indlondlo is like you get into your levels where they're like you're about to become like Isanosi, like what Credo, if we know Credo Mkwa, he was Isanosi, so it's like you basically the greatest prophetess or prophet, and you see into the realm and you connect to the deepest and the most powerful entities. So when you dream of Indlondlo, you dream of Inzuza, which is something apparently I possessed, which is Umoya Wenzuza, which I'm going to talk about, but it's basically the Python spirit. And the idea of Inzuza is that you will later on, hence some traditional healers, I'm not saying, disclaimer, I've never seen it in my whole journey, I've never experienced it, I've never seen it, I didn't go through it, but I was told that eventually I would have to go fetch Umnigaz Wam. Umnigaz Wam would be the serpent. That's why hence in the beginning of my journey I kept on dreaming of snakes, and I'd have a snake by, I'd dream of all, I'd have to visit rivers. So the idea was that I was being self-initiated by the spirit of Inzuza, and eventually I get all my powers, I get all my wealth, and I get all my abilities come from Linzuza. So as time went by, I started going to the river a lot. Like I think guys, if big pay without me going to rivers. And before consulting and also after consulting and during consulting, I even started my client with I even started going with my clients to the rivers as well. That was just part of my work. That was just part of how I worked with water. And as I was saying, going back, the strange dreams. So it went from just dreaming of white people, Indian people, and then guys, it escalated. I started dreaming of these water entities, or I'd see a white man or like a spirit body, almost like a navy sort of bluish thing, person, but you can see that it's not human, but you can see it's like a water entity. So it looks like a mermaid, but it's not. It guys, then it comes to me in my dreams, and then it starts to basically harass me, and then it starts to basically attempt to have intimacy. And as time actually went by, as the months went by, and the more I consulted with water, the more I worked with water, the more visits I did with water, the more and more I subcontracted with water, I just had funny dreams. I just had funny dreams along those lines, and I later learned that that's actually a spiritual spouse. So, mind you, I've never had a spiritual spouse, and every time I'd go consult or I'd see someone for my next stage, they'd tell me ukuthi unesilwane, and or unesilwane or unedlozi umuntu wesilisa enomona ngawe, which was never even true. It's just me making contracts with these things, and then they manifested as these spirits that are spiritual spouses, that became spiritual husbands, that became marine spirits over me, and that became some sort of what ilwane over me, because I was carrying those spirits with me. That's what the contracting did. So I started having these dreams of intimacy, and I felt very violated sometimes, because in the morning I'd wake up feeling as if someone had touched me in the wrong places. And there's times where I couldn't control it, and I'd wake up feeling like, okay, something just happened to me, and I can't even tell anyone. It was such an embarrassing situation. And every time I'd go to like a healer or umtandazi and talk about these things, they tell me that no, you just need to keep using iwasho. And I found that, and I'm not going to touch on this, and I found that every time actually ngisebenzisa iswasho and whatever, iwasho umgqumo and whatever, palaza, whatever that I had to do regarding this and the rituals that were included, I felt that it worked for like 7 days or 14 days. And then after 14 days, yaqala futhi amaphupho, kuyaqala phansi nje, back to normal, just back to normal. Then they tell me wash with grof salt, which is coarse salt, and water, plain water, because you're a water baby, so you don't need too much. And then they tell me to like wash with it, and I felt like every single time I engaged in these practices, things got worse. Covenant basically went from 0 to 100. It just got worse. And that's another thing I'm going to quickly touch on right now while I'm talking about this, is that, Buffett, so I don't know if we don't notice. Let's say it does a wash on emgqumo, and I won't talk for Imiti because generally I never even got along with umot in general. But I'm going to talk about the thing that is mostly spoken about. Your pink salt, zenhlanhla, umgqumo, washa, ithunzi, and etc. All these things that help you to remove these things, and things that open inhlanhla yakho. I always found that they were so transactional. It's like after ugquma, after ugeza, and after something is meant to come out, but you always have to kind of return to it. So it's like I'd wash with something, grof salt or like pink salt or iswasho. Things would go well for me, and I'd feel free for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. Things will go well, whether I'm working, whether I'm studying, and I found this most of all with my clients as well. Things will go well, things will prosper, and then you just keep coming back. And then you also become sort of reliant on this thing, and you feel like every time that even guys, natural things happen, bad things happen, things go slow, but we can't upset it once we're in this kingdom, because the devil rushes us. That's what the devil wants us to think, that things are not going right. So the devil always provides an alternative solution. The devil is a counterfeit, and he always wants to provide an alternative fast way to get to where you shouldn't get to. So he will make you think that iswasho sizokuphuthumisa izinto, when it only pushes you further out of alignment, when it only ties you to unnecessary covenants that you should not be part of. Even these pink salts, even these iwasho, guys, you cannot tell me that you think really pink salt is the one that's giving you inhlanhla. Can I tell you guys, it's not. It's not what gives you inhlanhla. I've seen how they make pink salt. I've been in the same Lumba where we create iwasho. That's not what gives you power. It's the spirit that operates behind it that gives it power. That's what activates it. And the fact that you choose to believe in it and use it and accept it and make a covenant with these things, that's when it works. Whatever you put your mind to, whatever you believe in, whatever you have faith in, will work out for you. So I just want to say, azinamandla, iswasho sisodwa, asinamandla. That's why you'll find that, and I'm going to come back to the word covenant here. That's why you find that most healers will tell you, and while you goma, while you're getting a swasho, most healers will tell you, while you're using it, you need to speak over it. While you're using it, while you're using it, or if you're into like bringing back an ex and all that weird notions, you have to call their name, you have to call their name, you have to call someone, you have to call upon and manifest all these things while you're using it, because they themselves know that iswasha alone, you sitting in pink water, will not do anything. What helps and what activates is your belief. What activates these washos, these mugumos, and whatever you drink, it is your belief. Even these the things that protect you from evil, and only intambo around your wrist and etc. Nobhlalo. Ubuhlalo cannot protect you, guys. Intambo cannot protect you. Inweba will not protect you. It is your belief that is protecting you. When you put your mind to it and you say, then it starts to so-called work for the moment. And that's why you find also, guys, that it so-called works. One, you make covenants with it. Covenant is anything you agree to. As soon as you say, I love you too, you've made covenant with that. As soon as you say, I agree, as soon as uvume ukuthi ufake lo buhlalo, as soon as uvume ukuthi ufake leyo ntambo, uvume futhi you believe in it, you've made covenant with it, and that's the only thing that makes it work. But the only difference is to just see how counterfeit these covenants are. You find that usuqumile wageza wawasha ngeswasho ke leso nakhona that's operating with its own spirit in it. You find that, oh, and by the way, just to notice how these things, all these things, these marine related things, iwasho, imgomo, they all need you to put the things inside water. Please clock it. All these things need you to put them inside water. Covenant. Marine covenant. Marine spirit associated covenant. That's why they work the way they do. And you find that every time you use them, they work for only blah blah blah, and then they bring you wealth. You put them in water and you made an agreement and you start to speak over it. So you gave it power and you allowed it and it activates in your life. But you don't understand what you've actually done. You've made covenant with the marine spirit. Hence why you also find that after Ugeza Ngeswasho, you still have a marine spirit with you. You still have intimate dreams, and you go to the gogo or the kehla or the sangoma or umtandas, you're like, but I'm still having these dreams down the line, because you did not actually remove it. You actually asked the marine spirit to work for you, and it works in disguise until it needs something back from you. And how these spirits work is they're gonna give you something. It's always tit for tat with these spirits. It's never just in jebagnik. Kukhona something bayifuna in return. So uthola ukuthi uyageza washo, hayi marine iyagxuma iyadansa nayo, while you busy doing all these things. Marine is dancing with you. Why are you doing all these things? It's gonna let you, it's gonna give you what you want. And that's how they work. They're gonna give you what you want. They will give you that car, they will give you that house, they will give you that man. Come months down the line, deka, things are gonna start decking, things are gonna start not going well. You have to go back and go vusalela. That's how they work. You go back when you're hlabing boobs. You go back. You have to keep going back. And notice this, guys. And this is what I keep saying about these spirits. The covenant and the cycles and the constant bondage that it has. There's no freedom there. Notice how, guys, all these things need you to keep renewing, or not even renewing. You have to keep going back. Loku vusalela. Because it's just so counterfeit, because it's unsustainable. Njalo fanele uyogquma after 4-5 months uvuselele. Njalo fanele uhambe uyohlaba imbuzi futhi, otherwise bawuyahlabela imbuzi uzobheda. Every time you have to go back. Again, we see a pattern. We see a cycle. We see evidence of cycle being birthed in this process. And anything that is a cycle, anything that repeats itself, anything that generates itself to be a cycle or a pattern is demonic. It is not of God, because God creates anew. That's what the Spirit of Christ does. He creates anew. Christ speaks even in Isaiah, see, I am doing a new thing. What the devil knows is to imitate. That's all he can do, because he doesn't have the power to create. The only thing that the devil can do is imitate. Hence, you have counterfeit relationships, counterfeit friendships, counterfeit situations. You have generational curses, generational patterns. It all sparks from repetition. So notice how anything that is enrooted in the devil's thing needs you to keep going back. Bondage keeps you going back. Trauma keeps you going back. Hurt keeps you going back. Betrayal keeps you going back. And why I mentioned hurt is because you see the fruits of something. And now we're tapping onto a different element. We're going to fruits. The fruits of the Holy Spirit are patience, love, joy, self-control, patience. But the fruit of the devil, manipulation, falsification, you see a lot of patterns, repetition. That's what we're dealing with, the fruits of the devil. And the fruits of the devil are literally unforgiveness. So what I'm trying to say here is, guys, we're literally starting to invite Amadimon on top of the problems we already have. We are inviting Amadimon, and that's exactly what I did. I realized that already I was in a predicament and in a bit of a trouble with these marine spirits. But I furthered my issues by inviting these things. Iwasho, and again, guys, look at the element of this whole African traditional thing, which made sense to me later stage. I realized that everything is so it's built on idol. Everything is built on a thing. You buy, it's a thing. It's impepo. She's impepo, it's a thing. It's this, it's a thing. It's iswasho, it's a thing. That's why I ban begi, because you're so reliant on a thing. And I think I mentioned in my previous video how I just love that song, and I remember it now by Cindy Ntombela, and it says agadingi nasibani. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. We're so dependent on things when you're in this kingdom, and we're so fooled that that's exactly what's working out for us. But we don't wonder why we have to keep going back to those things when things don't work out, because you have no freedom. You find yourself actually creating covenant and bondage and actually raising up an altar that you never belonged to in the beginning, that you should have never raised to begin with. You start forming altars, you start forming idols without even realizing it. And in that of not only are you having that pattern, but you start idolizing the traditional healer as well. I know so many people who came back to me as a traditional healer, always sekuphele iwasho nami ngibanike more, sekuphele lokhu nami ngibambike more, sekuphele lokhu, then you give them more, because it is literally a thing of things, and you become so reliant on these things, and then you idolize. That is why Christ is so against idolization, and it is this very core, because he knows where idolization, the spirit of idolization comes from. So what I want to say is, this is exactly how I knew that I was stuck with marine kingdom related spirits. And not only that, I dream of snakes, continue dreaming of snakes, big ones next to me. And then I had the disturbing dreams of these entities being intimate with me. And it was just that sort of cycle the whole time around me. And I just could not seem to break free out of this. And I will, at a later stage, by the end of these parts, elaborate on how I got free, or Jesus Christ freed me from these spirit spouses and all these weird marine kingdom related spirits. And I just want to go to this and say that please realize that some of you are really trapped, not because it's a generational curse, not because it's a generational spirit, not because God is too slow. It's because you're impatient and you resorted to another method. Realize how when the Israelites were arrive to the promised land. Instead of 11 days, they took 40 years to get to their promised land because of disobedience and wanting to go their own way and not adhering to God's will. And that's exactly what happens when you choose to go this way. I remember I had a friend at once. She sort of also encouraged me to continue with this whole Iwash or no Goma thing. And I remember this friend, she was also very Christian in the beginning, but she became so indulged in this realm of imgumo, nophalaza, newasho, and even worse, her reasoning is worse. And I think we at one point had the same reasoning, but her main core reason was trying to get jobs, trying to sustain her relationships with certain males. And this is what we find. And the craziest thing is, I always used to tell her that, but all your relationships are not lasting, even though we are qobela. And I've always heard in my African time when I was a healer, we had problems like females about Lisa, they male partners, and then their male partners become almost izilwane onto them. And I don't wonder, I am not surprised, because you are literally manipulating the course of nature. And that's exactly what these things do. Iwasho, imgomo, and all these things. Because you've entered the covenant and this marine works on manipulation. It literally works on manipulating the course of nature. There's nothing good you'll get out of that. You hear people about Gomela like their partners, and they never ever can sustain the relationship because it was never God willed for it to be that way. Asifundeni guys ukuthi some things take long. Let's be okay with things taking long. Let's be okay with not getting immediate gratification and results. Let's be okay with it. Let's normalize that some things take long, and it's completely okay. Let's normalize that there are lessons to be learned. And as the word of God says in Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time for everything. There's a time to mourn, there's a time for. Normalize that there are seasons in your life. Some seasons are a bit longer than others. But iswasho, imgomo is not the Solulu at all. So guys, I continue just having these dreams, and then I started involving my clients in this. Guys, it's such a tricky thing with this Marine King at the kingdom, and the thing is, it brings you wealth, it brings you clients. Izolanda abantu angazi abasuka le ibalethe khona endumbeni yakho. That's how the Marine Kingdom works. But I found that every single time I started engaging, besides the dreams and the river trips, things got a little bit more demanding. So it'll be more slaughtering. So slaughtering moved from like once a year to like 4 times in 1 year. And I don't even know why I'm doing this. It started to feel a little bit culty. It started to feel a little bit Swallow-ish. And in return, my things would look like they're booming. I'd be getting contracts left and right and center. At that time, I had a little bit of a tender business. While I was still at school, I applied for tenders and so forth. And those things in jail would boom. And lapa, some people who are around me that time were like, I lost like let's. And I'm thinking to myself, but at night, anglali kahle. And that's another thing I'm going to get to soon, is how these entities started to switch up on me. As time went by, these entities switched up on me because I did not want to do what they wanted me to do, or I wasn't doing it on time. And I started questioning the way things were happening, because every time I wouldn't do something, some bad thing would befall me. And I didn't understand that concept. How is my grandpa or how is my grandmother that is no longer here doing something bad to me because I disagreed? And how are they showing up this way now because I just simply didn't do a ceremony in time. Things became more demanding. I could not sleep as peaceful anymore. I'd hear things. Another thing that was predominant at that time with the marine spirits, I started to have extremely bad ringing ears. Like ringing ears. And then it became a thing of, from ringing ears, and then I started to hear some birds. Guys, I kid you not, like tweet, 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 like tweeting, like in my ear as I'm sleeping. And then it moved to deeper sort of like trances while I'm sleeping. And then because the idea was that ngiyolanda umnikazi wami, because that was the end goal of this whole thing, ukuthi ngizolanda umnikazi. That's why I'm not gonna finish school, because Zuzumeka one day I'm gonna just walk to a chosen river place. I'd go fetch my owner, the python, and I'd live with it and I'd consult with it, and and that would just be my life. And that's it. And because that process was starting to take shape and the marine kingdom was really calling me, I started to sleep and dream of grannies I've never met. I started to dream of houses under the ocean. I saw houses all the time and huts. I'd see like a big snake sitting like in a corner of the hut, and I would make up when I'm sleeping with maybe that's the person, or maybe that's the snake that I'm supposed to fetch eventually. And I'd see all these things in my dreams. So going to like that, I started trancing in my sleep. So I'd sleep and then I'd hear like, I can't really explain this. It's like I would astral project. So those who don't know, astral projecting is when you're sleeping, your physical body is sleeping, but your spirit leaves your body and it goes into the other realms. Remember guys, there is a different realm, and that's one thing we need to make clear, that there is a spiritual realm. It's not like there's no spiritual realm, but in that spiritual realm, hence the word of God. And I'm under correction, but in Ephesians 6 verse 10 it says, we do not fight against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the authorities, the principalities, and the spiritual forces of this present darkness. I think that's exactly what it says. I fully agree. When I started going into those trances and moving into that transfixion, I started realizing that this life is more than what we think it is. So the idea was that I'd start to walk myself closer to the area, the designated area where I'd be sent to go fetch this snake, this python, to go work with. So every night when I'd sleep, and then I started kancane ngestyle. Ayinastyle nje, aqala ngathi sleep paralysis, and then it moved on to being very serious. And that's when I realized, oh my word, my soul is in danger. So I'd sleep, I'd close my eyes, and then I'd sleep, and then I'd hear the birds chirp, and that's apparently umoya womlozi. So now it's a different spirit that's also. Do you see how, before I continue, I'm just going to touch on this. Do you see how in the beginning of the videos I told you guys that I had Dao? Then it moved from Dao to spirits of Python. Then from spirits of Python, it's this. Then now we move on, and a bit of spirits of Jezebel, I'm guessing because of the intimacy dreams and the spiritual spouses. Then it moved on now to Umlos. So I became a bit of a temple of demons. So I understand that at this time I was very much compromised spiritually. I'd sleep, and then I'd hear the birds as I'm sleeping, and then it became like ngiyasangana while I'm sleeping. It became like I've been under like hypnosis, and I'd sort of leave this world as I'm sleeping, and I can feel. That's the craziest part about astral projecting. You are aware that you're no longer in your body. In the moment you are aware that, and there's no way of returning until your soul returns into your physical body. So Ngilela, and then this happens, and then I'd sort of just hear as if I'm hearing birds and as if I'm in nature, and it's almost like I'm hearing it even now, like a little bit, just remembering it. And I'd hear almost like the chirping, and then I'd hear like flashes of waterfall. I'd hear flashes of waterfall. I'd hear like I'm in Izibestile, like I'm no longer here, and that's where I am in that certain time. And I can feel like something like pulling my soul, like to come in to the water. Oh, and that would happen quite occasionally. And it started happening from like once a week to like twice a week, thrice a week, 4 times a week. And then it sort of got a little bit complicated thereafter. That's when the real Ubungoma or whatever was going on started to happen.